Hello, thank you for joining us for a discussion, Putting the Brakes on Speeding Now and After the COVID-19 Pandemic. I am Andy Souders, President and CEO of All Traffic Solutions, and I'll be the moderator for today's session. I'm super excited to be joined by an amazing group of panelists, each of whom bring a unique perspective towards ATSSA's core purpose to advance roadway safety and ATSSA's mission to move towards zero deaths on our nation's roads. With that, I'd like to turn it over to the panelists to introduce themselves, starting with Jason.
Hello, Andy. Thank you very much. I'm so honored to be here with our panelists and especially with our participants at such a great event to get professionals together to really try to make a difference and get us to our goals of zero fatalities and reducing those serious injury crashes on our roadways across the country. It's really an honor and privilege to be here. My name is Jason Farias. I work for the Rhode Island Department of Transportation. I'm assigned to the Office on Highway Safety as a program coordinator, focusing in on one of the areas is speed. I did have a 20-year career in law enforcement with the majority of my time focused on traffic and accident reconstruction, commercial enforcement, but I also spent time in patrol and detectives, prosecution, and many other facets of special teams within law enforcement. But I've been blessed to be able to continue my career in traffic safety with the DOT. And again, just thank you for having me.
Pleasure. Melissa, how about you go next?
Good morning. I'm Melissa Wandall, and I'm so grateful to be here today with this incredible panel as we do work together to move towards zero death in this country. I'm the president of the National Coalition for Safer Roads. We empower survivor advocates with the tools and resources needed to end roadway tragedy. And I'm also the campaign ambassador for Alert Today Florida. It's a Florida Department of Transportation coalition that focuses in on bicyclist and pedestrian safety. I've also been involved with legislation here in the state of Florida, instrumental in passing a bill in my husband's name, the Mark Wandall Traffic Safety Act, which allows automated enforcement, red light safety cameras at the most dangerous intersections in the state of Florida. And I'm so grateful as an advocate, first and foremost, to be here today to share your vision to help us slow down the speeds on our country and save human lives.
Fantastic. Thanks, Melissa. Lieutenant Schweitzer.
Good afternoon. Good morning. My name is Mike Schweitzer. I've been with the Frostburg Police Department 39 years. I have come up through the ranks through radar, traffic enforcement, till I was placed on the State Highway Administration's Traffic Safety Council. I've worked with NHTSA and other traffic-related organizations. Basically, I'm their speed guy. Thank you.
That's great. Thanks, Lieutenant Schweitzer. And thank you all. So excited, as each of you said. This is a great discussion. I think it's an opportunity for us to really get a strong message out there on the types of things we can do to truly get towards zero deaths. I'm Andy Souders. I've been with All Traffic for the last 4 years. I spent the last 30 years in technology, developing technology solutions. And at All Traffic, I'm, again, super excited to be here to be able to apply technology to help create safer roads. A little about All Traffic. We were founded in 1999, starting initially in the manufacturing of variable message signs. And from there, we moved into radar feedback signs. So if you've ever seen a speed limit 45, your speed 55, that might be one of our signs. One of the things that makes All Traffic a little bit unique is that our signs are all remotely connected to the internet. So effectively what we have is a real-time collection of information or a traffic data study so that we can see what's going on for thousands of sites across the country. All Traffic leverages technology in our partnerships with law enforcement, state and local DOTs, municipalities, education, and the private sector to create smarter, safer communities. We wanted to start today's presentation with a little bit of background on the current traffic trends. We've all heard the issues of excessive speeding and reckless driving during the pandemic. With fewer cars on the road, some drivers are taking massive advantage of the empty streets. There was a recent report that revealed that the death rate per 100 million miles traveled was up 12.7% from 2019 to 2020. So even though the traffic volumes are lower, the number of traffic fatalities, the percentage of traffic fatalities was actually higher. We've also seen the virtual elimination of rush hour traffic congestion, which is a good thing here in the DC area. As an example, rush hour volumes are down 65%, but unfortunately the average speed during rush hour, if you look at the Capital Beltway, I-495, was 70 miles an hour. That's compared to 27 miles an hour pre-pandemic, and it's also 15 miles an hour over the speed limit. So this all leads to a new reality on the roads. Some more statistics. In Minnesota, there were 42 traffic-related fatalities during the first 45 days of the lockdown, which was up from 29 the same period the year before. So we had roughly twice the number of fatalities with half of the traffic volume. And we've also heard incredible stories across the country of speeding, with drivers routinely exceeding 120 miles an hour. And there was a driver in Michigan that was clocked going 180 miles an hour. It's truly exceptional. It must be a very fast car. So shifting a little bit from kind of the macro level view, which is our highways, to kind of our smaller roads and arterials. This chart shows the risk of a pedestrian being struck by a vehicle at different speeds. You can see that only 1 out of 10 will survive being hit by a vehicle going 40 miles an hour, while 9 out of 10 may survive being struck by a vehicle at 20 miles an hour. This has resulted in many states across the country lowering their speed limits. And in fact, here in DC, the speed limit for all streets was lowered from 25 to 20 in an effort to reduce pedestrian deaths. As we look more again towards the highway view to the arterial and local road view, this is an all-traffic data study, which is just outside New York City for one of our customers in New Jersey. And here you can see the blue bars showing the reduction in traffic volume over time, with that gray bar showing, that gray line showing the max speeds. Now, important to note, this is a speed limit 25 zone, and we actually clocked a vehicle going 100 miles an hour. Hopefully that was an emergency responder, but you can see there that there are still the erratic speeders even on our local roads. Another view of that is we look over time though. This is the New Jersey, again, the same study. This data is collected by a radar feedback sign, which reminds drivers of their speeds. We can see a dramatic, you can again see the dramatic decrease in volume, but average speeds during this time stayed relatively in check. So back to the point that the technology, when drivers see the technology, when they see their speed, they react to that accordingly. So it helps try to keep the speeding somewhat in check. Shifting a little bit, another gear, this is a customer that we have in Connecticut. And what we've shown here is the percentage of drivers going above 50 miles an hour, which is this orange line on that top bar, overlaid with 7-day moving average of COVID cases. So I think the dramatic view here is seeing that we are starting to see a reduction in the number of crashes and fatalities, even though the number of COVID cases is going up. So I think that overall the messaging is getting out there to keep your speed in check. And I think that different municipalities are doing a great job of applying technology to solve some of these problems. And with that, and to kind of kick off the panel discussion, I'd like to turn it over to Jason. He has his own data and kind of describe some of the things that he's seeing, the trends that he's seeing in Rhode Island.
Thanks again, Andy. It's interesting that we do see, there's a lot of reports across the country that BMT is down, but fatalities are up, and but it is vice versa for some communities as well, that they're seeing both a reduction in BMT and fatalities. But unfortunately, I hear more stories that there's an increase in the fatalities, and that's not the direction we want to go. Back in 2017, we had our highest fatality crash rate, I think ever. it's not something that we wanted to ever see again. And we started a downward trend. But unfortunately, we see data here for the last, the 3 years, and everything's kind of behind, so 2020, we're still in the process of trying to pull that information together. But we're tracking 73 already. And it was disheartening to see that, especially when you initially had excitement saying, okay, our VMT is going to go down. We're going to see an impact here, hopefully in a positive, direction. When we talk about tools and things to help law enforcement or community groups and just, highway safety champions to combat these issues. But it kind of brought to light that, we had an issue before of trying to pinpoint when certain things were happening. Yes, morning commute, evening commute. We knew there was traffic. We knew there were issues that were going to, occur with those. But now when, majority of our communities are working from home, that time frame has been in a little bit of a flux. So now you have to try to re-pinpoint, these areas. But with that sporadic traffic, it makes it even more difficult to say, okay, now we're seeing it at this time or that time. We have this many cars, because there's really no rhyme or reason sometimes to say, okay, how many people are going to go out today? Do they have meetings that they have to be on Zoom, or, a meeting that they try to have to go somewhere else, but, or just go shopping. Like, you're trying to keep abreast of what that each community is trying to look at. So these tools are really beneficial to get that locked down, and utilizing signs or cameras. Melissa had talked about legislation with cameras. Those are things that we're looking at to expand upon in Rhode Island with leadership from our House and Senate side, to increase it just from not only a school zone, but give the communities a tool and enable them to utilize those things, on all roads, within parameters that we can use. I mean, it's not to say that it's definitely going to happen, but at least there's a discussion that's going on to say, yes, we want to look at this. This may be something that we can, put forward to, the state of Rhode Island to say, okay, can we vote on this part of it to increase traffic safety, as a state as a whole? We are a small state, so, one or two can really affect our percentages as far as, fatal crashes or the injuries. And, so when you can have a swing of maybe, 4 to 5 points on one crash, that can make a big difference when you're presenting data. So.
Absolutely. And I think, Lieutenant Schweitzer, you have, as you said, you've been doing this for 39 years. Prior conversations with you, clearly passionate about data and the application of data. So from the macro view of a statewide, could you share your perspective on what's going on within the smaller municipalities and smaller cities like Frostburg?
Well, you're aware Frostburg's a small town, 10,000 permanent residents. We only have 2 roads of 50 mile an hour or more. Everything else is 40s, mostly 20s. The data that we received from the feedback sign indicated that most of the drivers want to pay attention to the speed limit. They're just not paying attention when they're driving. The sign reminds them. And we've actually had good luck in the areas we've placed her that the speed has stayed down. We do follow up like a week or so later. We place a patrol car there with a radar gun, and the vehicles are still maintaining the speed limit. Now we've run into a couple little bumps, but nothing unusual. We have one guy that made a cardboard sign that said, "Hey, speed trap ahead." Well,
works. It's going to slow the driver down. I think that's a great segue into Melissa. I mean, with what you've been doing to help, be an advocate in passing the Mark Wandall Traffic Safety Act, in shifting gears a little bit from speeding to reckless driving and red light running. And I mean, they're just like the speed trap ahead signs, red light camera ahead signs, they work. So could you share your perspective on, what you're seeing?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So they do work. And, people used to say like, oh, so the gentleman holding the sign that says speed trap ahead, and people, get upset about that. Oh, no, no. Well, we don't want to catch people doing anything wrong. We want as much signage as possible out there, even if it's a man holding a sign saying speed trap ahead, because if we slow people down, even if they're afraid of getting a ticket, then lives will be saved. Human lives will be saved. In the state of Florida that I live in, I was able, along with others, to pass a bill, the Mark Wandall Traffic Safety Act, that would allow red light safety cameras in the state of Florida. The bill passed in 2010, and that bill, the red light safety cameras, when people are going through an intersection, they're speeding. That is why crashes are caused, and that is why those T-bone crashes end up killing people. And so we want to slow that down at intersections. And I wanted to find a way to reduce the risk of people running red lights and killing somebody. So the opportunity here in Florida, one of the greatest things, I also do pedestrian and bicyclist safety work. So the wonderful thing is that in 2018, the cameras showed that there was a 20% decrease in pedestrian deaths where red light cameras were present in the state of Florida. And then the following year, 2019, they were down another 10% on top of that 21%. So they show that they are doing what they were designed to do. And we have to remember, when it comes time to speed cameras, red light safety cameras, automated enforcement, people get up in their arms about it because they think that people are truly trying to, again, be trapped into getting a ticket. We don't want people to take a ticket. We don't want people to take a life. We'd rather have them take a ticket and take a life and learn from it. But we have to remember as a society that no death or life-altering injury is ever acceptable. These safety cameras are being used across the globe and in communities across the US and are proven to discourage speeding and red light running. So not only in Florida, but through hard-fought campaigns, New York City, as an example, has lowered the speed limit and brought speed safety cameras to nearly every school district in New York City. And those speed safety cameras in school zone resulted in a 63% reduction in speeding, with a 55% decrease in deaths and a 17% reduction in traffic injuries in locations with those cameras. And then also, you could go to Fairfax, Virginia, where the city's red light program resulted in a 44% drop in violations from motorists running red lights within the first year of operation. So these cameras, these good working programs, it takes signage. It takes signage, it takes automated enforcement, it takes law enforcement, it takes education and advocacy. It takes all of us together combined to, cut down on these crashes and save human lives.
That's your point about the school zones is right on, and everything. I mean, basically that you shared is so true. We have a school zone in the San Francisco Bay Area that even though school was shut down, the sign was still there. It was still programmed to basically reduce the speed from 35 miles an hour to 25 miles an hour, while school was either while the kids were coming to or leaving school. And what we found, again, overwhelmingly, was that the drivers, they basically react to the sign. There was another article recently about a police chief in Nebraska, and he said he wished you didn't need to have the sign, to your point, Melissa, that people would obey a red light, that they wouldn't race the light, that people would obey the speed limit. But in some cases, they're just not going to do that. So, again, back to leveraging technology, and admittedly, I'm biased. I've been in technology for the past 30 years. I firmly believe that technology can help solve some of these problems. Jason, to follow up on your point before, how does the larger DOTs work with federal, how do you work to get federal grants to help with the funding of different types of campaigns that you're doing throughout the state?
So within our unit, we deal with specifically the behavioral side of the highway safety issues. So we don't do anything with the engineering part. That's a different section of DOT. And I think that's typical for a lot of highway safety offices. But our funding comes through NHTSA, and it's all through the emphasis areas that, the funding is specified to be used in, speed, a click at a ticket, or, impaired driving, motorcycles, pedestrians, vulnerable road users. And because it's prescribed to particular areas, you have to be able to reach out with partners, be it through law enforcement or community groups, to ensure that you're touching all the bases to get the message out. There's been a lot of discussions across the country about, the 4 E's or 5 E's, or whatever side you want to, look at how many E's there are for the, the education, enforcement, and all these. But the big push right now is for engagement, and, Melissa was talking about that too, and, trying to get that message out, engage people and get the message out, show them the signs, and those are sometimes difficult to get everybody involved, because, as a state agency, you may put out a message, it may go out on, a Twitter feed, or it may go out to a local newspaper. And what we see is that sometimes we don't have the full involvement of a whole community. You may have a small group of people who want to invest some time or show up and do something, and they're very passionate about it, but is it the full message of what we're trying to do or get across? And I think that it would benefit everyone if we can get that engagement part more open, to get everybody in to be part of the discussion, because it will benefit all of us. And that's when you get to your point of saying, okay, I wish we didn't need the sign. If everybody understands where everybody's coming from, and we can have a discussion about it, I think it would make a big difference. And we all know that when you have the speed cameras out there, red light cameras, people know, okay, all right, at that intersection, maybe I have to pay attention for that. But once I get through that, I can kick it up a notch again. And that's kind of some of that battle back on it of, why do you have it here if you're not going to, do it across down every single stretch of roadway? Well, unfortunately, there's not enough manpower to do that. And, we have to take a little bit of onus as a society and say, okay, maybe we need to keep our, behaviors in check here a little bit and care about, one another. And that's basically what it comes down to. But, it is a team effort. It's not that the DOT itself is going to be able to do it, or law enforcement themselves are going to be able to do it, or advocates, or that community group. It really is going to take all of the prongs to work on that. It's not just one thing that's going to be that magic fix. If it was, we'd be doing that, and probably most of us that are in attendance here today probably wouldn't have, a career in this, because, we'd be doing the right thing.
Absolutely. I think that one of the things I saw, Jason, was your campaign around the ripple effect. And I think it's been very well received across the country. If you could just kind of talk a little bit about that. And, I think the primary focus on that is it's not just you, it's not just the driver, it's, your family, it's others, it's the person you may hit, and things like that. So if you don't mind just talking a little bit about the ripple effect in the campaign.
Yeah, so that, it's trying to get the story out of, again, it's not just numbers here we're talking about, it's people. Every person has a name, every person has a family, they have friends, they have an impact on their community. And that impact goes through, even the first responders on scene that have to deal with the crashes, people at the hospital, even people driving by are affected by what they potentially see in these crashes. Right now we're going through another rendition, just kind of continuing that ripple effect, and coming out with commercials that are trying to get everyone to realize that they really do have an impact. They could make a decision, to take the keys or intervene, just not say, well, yeah, they're an adult, they can make their own decision, but I had them at my house, or, I went out to dinner and I saw that they had a few too many drinks. What could I have done? Could I, gotten them an Uber or Lyft, or if they're at the house, just say, stay on the couch, you don't go anywhere. Try to make an effort to, stop the potential of that horrific event occurring. because no matter what happens, you could still make a difference, even though you made right choices not to either drink or not drive. Pay attention to what your friends or either, your co-workers or whatever it may be when you're out, to look at that and try to be a difference maker in that aspect.
Absolutely.
And
I think that, Lieutenant Schweitzer, I think one of the coolest things that that you did is created a Facebook page to help spread awareness, and you named it Speed Awareness Monitor, or SAM. Could you share a little bit about Sam and
Gonna go there, yeah.
how she's doing?
Sam was my daughter. She was killed in a car crash in Ocean City in 2010. She was crossing the street and a vehicle come up through the bus lane as she was crossing and struck her at about 45 miles an hour. So that's how we got the name Sam. We decided that we're going to use that for a positive benefit, and we're going to try and save every person on the planet. We want 0 deaths, and we want people to be aware, just like Jason said, that there's a ripple effect of this, that these people belong to somebody, their family. And so that's why we did the aggressive program with that. We've had really good feedback. I'm sure you follow us, but we've got thousands of comments on the city page as well as the SAM page about it. We've started a form that if you want to fill it out, we'll consider putting Speed Awareness Monitor in your neighborhood. So we're getting community involved and the word spreads. It's a great program.
Yeah, I think it's truly incredible, and I appreciate you sharing your story. I think when it comes down to it, that if through leveraging technology, we can prevent one death, just awareness, and it doesn't necessarily even have to be technology, but Melissa, I know you've been such a strong advocate for many years. If you could share your thoughts and your views on, what are the types of things we can do to help spread awareness? I mean, I'd love for, I think we'd all love for there to be actually 0 deaths. But what do we need to do to help, really make this, Vision Zero truly happen? And, and what do we need to do with lawmakers, legislation, advocacy? If you could share kind of your thoughts on that, because that's really, you're a very strong proponent of all of that.
yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. And at the end of the day, human lives matter. Like, I will take Sam with me, Lieutenant Schweitzer. I will take Sam with me forever, and here in the state of Florida too, and be able to, share her story as I share my husband's story, and then so many others that are lost. It gets back to the simplicity of human lives. Because again, we know that no death or life-altering injury should ever be acceptable, and we must cultivate change on our roadways in order to sustain human lives. We just need to zero in on a plan, and we need to get involved. Like here, even in the state of Florida, we have high visibility enforcement. And I am so grateful through the Alert Today Coalition that I work with our law enforcement, and I go out on the streets, talk to our bicyclists and our pedestrians that have to bike to work every day, that have to walk to work every day, and remind them to save their own lives, to help them, to get involved, because you know what? They're just living the life the best that they can every day and getting from point A to B, and they're not always doing it safely. And there's people out there that are just not looking out for them. So we have to zero in on a plan, get involved, be visible, and we can't just talk about it and complain about the problem. We are all advocates, and we can all be a part of the safety solution on our roadways. We have to be the voice. We have to get involved with our policymakers. We can't fear them. And we can't sit back and say, well, that's never going to happen. If I sat back and said that a bill could never be possible in my husband's name, then I don't know how many lives may have tragically been lost along with him. We must show our politicians that human lives matter. Our policymakers must get involved, or else we will never get to zero without them. Our legislators must focus in on advancing policy that improves road safety, not proposing legislation for regressive policy, such as repealing automated enforcement bills and or prohibiting their use. We have to work with advocates. There's advocates all over this country. We have to work with advocates and roadway tragedy survivors to utilize their stories and their voices for change. And we can't quit. We must remember that human lives matter. We're all in this industry, whether by choice or circumstances. We all want to see a better day on our roadways, and we can and we will if we do not give up because it's too hard. Every life matters, and one death due to roadway tragedy is one death too many. We have to keep our mission to save lives on our national roadways a priority. We have to create safety campaigns to remind all road users to follow the rules of the road. And if anybody needs help with organizing those campaigns, they just reach out to me, because that's what I love to do. When you are present with your community and your cause, lives will absolutely be saved. Our call to action is go to your legislators, go to your policymakers, and let them know that human lives matters. And if we just unite our voices, we can save lives out there on our roadways.
I think that's perfectly said. And I think as we're wrapping up this session, every viewer of this, with ATSSA, and again, back to ATSSA's core mission and core purpose of moving towards zero deaths on our nation's roads, we can all be advocates. I know that, I recommend that any of the panelists, they're available, 100% available to anyone who's watching this. If we need to, Jason would be available to speak, and Lieutenant Schweitzer and Melissa, if you need their help or my help in any way, we're all clearly, we're very passionate about this, and we hope that we can really spread that passion. So with that, I would like to kind of go around the table. Jason, any final thoughts, or Lieutenant Schweitzer or Melissa? Again, I can't thank you enough. I think this is just it's such a great presentation, and I'm very honored to be working with each of you to help make a difference.
Yeah, no, thank you. One word of, maybe it's just don't get discouraged. These things that we're trying to change, again, they don't happen overnight. They take time. And you may see things that you feel may be detrimental to what you're trying to move forward. I mean, there are states out there that even I saw the other day, something like, jaywalking, they're pulling that statute out so that they can't enforce that anymore. And they put out studies that go both ways of saying, you need to cross at a crosswalk, or, somebody that's not crossing may pay more attention. Those are things that, you don't want to jump on one side or the other, because there might be things that are viable on each side. Take down the walls, work on that engagement, and try to come up to something that's going to work for the community. And that's what's going to take the time, and that it may be legislative, it may be just a community education program, it might be law enforcement, but those are the things that everybody needs to work on together, because once you start on that small area and expound on that can make a difference, like resonates throughout the country and have a positive ripple effect, and those are good stories, because if something gets done and it was done as a community group, that goes a long way.
Absolutely.
I guess my advice is never give up. When you run into a wall, back up and take another run at it. That's the only way to get this done.
Yeah, I agree. Continue working together as a team, unite as one voice. I think it's so important, and definitely do not give up. My husband lost his life in 2003 to a red light runner. In 2010, after 5 years of education and advocacy, the bill passed. 2011, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 19, and 20, the bill has been in repeal. But we keep moving forward because human lives matter. I cannot say that enough. And don't give up. There's amazing people in this industry. We're all working together. We can take the biggest pieces of all of us, the things we do the best, and work together, and we will save lives. So it's an honor to be on this panel with such a prestigious group of gentlemen, and I could not be more grateful.
Well said. Thank you all. Appreciate it. And I think that concludes the session.